I have watched thousands of devlogs on YouTube. The reason I started making devlogs is because of how much I enjoy watching them. But I've noticed one problem that is pretty single-handedly holding down the genre as a whole, and it's a pervasive, weirdly elitist gatekeeping attitude. It's really popular right now to be like, making games isn't for most people, but since I'm mommy's most special boy, I can do it, but you definitely can't. This sort of anti-advice is even worse when it comes to devlogs. I genuinely struggle to find useful advice about devlogs because instead, I'm flooded with advice basically just telling people to give up before they've even started. So I'm not here to question whether or not you should make devlogs. That's up to you. I'm just going to break down how they work, what the common mistakes are, and what makes a good one. But first, thanks to GameMaker for sponsoring this video. If you want to get started with game development, GameMaker is a really fantastic choice for your engine. First and foremost, it's free. You only have to pay for a license if you're releasing your game commercially, so it's completely risk-free to give it a try and see if you like it. And it's a great engine for getting started with because it's really good for learning, for 3 major reasons. The first and most important is that the community around GameMaker is really helpful. In the Inbound Shovel Discord, the GameMaker developers in my community wanted a dedicated place in the server to share updates and help each other, and they are active in there. So I know from experience that if you're using GameMaker, people want to help you with your game, and having those kinds of resources is crucial for development. The second reason is that it's super easy to use and incredibly beginner friendly. When I asked the GameMaker devs in my community why they liked it, literally all of them said that it was simple, straightforward, and easy to understand what was going on. It's perfect for beginners because you can get to the real meat of designing your game without getting bogged down with difficult programming. And the third reason is something that I particularly like, which is that everything you need to make your game can be found in the engine. Obviously, this includes scripting and setting up your objects and stuff, but there's even a sprite editor and a whole animation system. Like everything you need to make your game is inside of GameMaker. And if you've ever worked with a game engine where the sprite editing tools aren't a part of it, you already know just how much of a pain the importing process can be. So having everything you need inside of your engine really speeds up your workflow. So if you're a beginner trying to get started or a seasoned dev looking for a new engine to try out, then download GameMaker using the link in the description and start building games today. But now, when it comes to making a good devlog, I think the most important and the most absolutely crucial part is writing a script. And that's because no matter how much good advice you get and how many great ideas you have, you're not going to be able to apply all of it in real time. If you just press record and start talking without planning ahead of time, you're going to end up with an absolute mess. You might be able to salvage something with a bunch of painstaking editing, but in my experience making devlogs, the difference in quality between an unscripted video and a completely scripted video is night and day. An unscripted video usually ends up being a lot of incoherent rambling, where you repeat yourself over and over again, while also somehow managing to leave out super important, interesting details. But I realized that some direct numbers here would help prove my point, because for Isadora's Edge, I've done scripted devlogs and I've done unscripted devlogs. So my 15 scripted devlogs for Isadora's Edge average out to a little over 45,000 views apiece, and my 9 unscripted devlogs for Isadora's Edge average out to a little over 9,000 views. On my channel, a scripted devlog performs about 500% better. So there's a clear advantage to writing a script. But you might be wondering how you write a script. Because what a lot of people do is sit down and type out their script as if it was just an essay for school. And then they read out exactly what they wrote, word for word, into the microphone. And this results in a pretty stilted delivery. It feels more like a class presentation than an engaging video. So I break it out into 3 steps. First, I do a bullet point outline of everything I want to talk about in the video. Obviously, this includes the main updates to the game that the video is about, but it also includes any highlights that I find interesting, particularly funny bugs, or even if I just think of a really good joke while I'm working on the video. So at the end of the first step, I have a list of everything I want in the video. Then I move on to the second step, which I call defining the flow, where I go through all of my bullet points and organize them into the order I actually want to present them in the video. I used to go directly from outline to scripting, but I would always end up with a finished script that I was pretty happy with, but I would have a couple bullet points left over, and the video would still feel a little rambly, so I realized there's an important step here where I need to establish the structure of the video and figure out where all of those pieces go. And as a part of this step, I write transitions between the different points that cover how I want to move from one topic to the next. I don't want the video to feel like I'm going down a checklist of all the different things I want to talk about. So these transitions need to be added to create a consistent through line, so it feels like a single cohesive video. Then once I have the flow, I move on to the third step, which is actually writing the script, like all of the words I need to say. And I do write these scripts word for word, but not just by sitting there and typing out all my thoughts and then reading it out loud. No, I talk to myself. I sit at my computer and pretend like I'm recording the devlog. I just riff on what I might want to say next until I find something I like, and then I write that down. That allows me to seamlessly transition to a video of me sitting at my desk working on my script right now. The rest of the script isn't done yet. I've just gotten this far and then turned on my camera and my streaming lights, and I don't know what's coming next. I don't know the next part of the script because I haven't written yet. So let's hope I come up with a really clever transition for how to get back to the main topic of the video. I didn't. But anyway, I go through that scripting process to flesh out exactly what I want to say for every section in the flow document. And once I've done that, I have my finished script. But okay, that's how you can write a script. But what should you write the script about? Like, obviously you're gonna talk about your game, but which parts of your game? There's a lot of stuff you could talk about. And how much detail should you go into for each of the things you want to cover? Well, the way I think about it is that there are two main things that a devlog can accomplish: showcasing something or telling a story. For a showcase, it's pretty straightforward. Pick something that you think is particularly interesting about your game, and then talk about why you think it's interesting, and cover all the different aspects of it. Why did you need it in the first place? And if you needed to learn something, you can talk about your learning process. How did actually implementing it go? Were there any bugs? And then actually show off the finished product and talk about the results. Did it turn out good? Is it more useful than you expected? Are there problems with it? Is there more stuff you need to do? Go through everything that's related to what you're showcasing, write it all down, and then delete everything except for the most interesting pieces and put them in the script. I've done showcases on hitboxes, lighting effects, level editing tools, my enemy AI like 3 different times, maybe 4 actually. Basically, whenever I finish a big task for Isadora's Edge, I start working on the outline step for the script. And if I find enough interesting bullet points to make a coherent video, I'll do it. To give you a little behind the scenes info, when I finished working on my hitbox system, I thought it probably wasn't going to be interesting enough for a devlog, but I did the outline step anyway, and I found enough bullet points to make a video out of it. And now it's one of the best performing videos on my channel. So sometimes going through the process of thinking about how you would present a particular feature in a devlog can actually reveal to you the interesting things to be showcasing. But that's for a showcase. The second strategy is telling a story. Now, the concept of storytelling as a whole is probably bigger than I can fit into a single video about making devlogs, but the idea is that you're presenting a narrative rather than focusing in on a specific feature of your game. You instead are telling a story about developing your game. My devlog about slopes is a good example of this, because I was thinking really hard about if I wanted slopes in my game, and I was dealing with a lot of issues trying to get slopes to work. So instead of trying to showcase my decision to get rid of slopes, I told a story about the difficulties in dealing with slopes. And even in this video right now, I tried to tell a story about the general state of devlogs on YouTube, and then use that story to lead into my advice about how to improve your own devlogs. I could have titled the video, "My Top 5 Tips on Making Good Devlogs," and done this like a Watch Mojo style, tip number 1, write a script. And honestly, I probably will change the title to something like that in the future so that it's easier for people to search it up as a resource if they want to make devlogs. But I thought that just giving a list of tips isn't super compelling. Also, I just am genuinely pretty passionate about trying to help new developers get started, so I wanted to try to be at least one positive voice encouraging you to pursue your dreams, to hopefully counteract some of the more negative trends I've been seeing. But that being said, I am trying to tell a story here, but I'm also showcasing my strategy for making devlogs. And that's an important note. Telling a story and showcasing something are not mutually exclusive. I think the best devlogs are usually the ones that manage to blend the two together seamlessly. When you're showcasing a feature, if you manage to also tell the story of developing it, you'll have a very compelling devlog on your hands. It's very hard to do well, and I still struggle with doing it myself, so I usually focus on one of the two styles when I'm writing my scripts. Okay, so now you have a script for the video. You know what you want to say, you know what you want to talk about. But what do you put on screen? What's the actual video part of the video? And my main advice for this is to put your game on the screen. I have watched way too many devlogs where the screen is completely static text for several minutes while they talk about a video game. You know the meme of putting Subway Surfers in a video to keep people's interest? Do that, but with your own game. People want to see it, it's relevant to what you're talking about, and it keeps their interest. The #1 comment I got on all of my Isadora's Edge devlogs early on was show more gameplay footage. So I would put more footage in the next devlog, and then people would leave that comment again. And this cycle just kept happening until I was using way more gameplay footage than I originally thought I needed. So you should definitely show your game in the video as much as you possibly can. And obviously, it's best to match exactly what you're talking about, right? So if you're talking about a particular level or a feature or an enemy, then put that footage on the screen. And if you don't have something that matches exactly, just use some generic B-roll of your game. But one question I get a lot is how to actually record that footage. Because in a lot of devlogs, you'll want to talk about the progress of the game and the updates you made along the way. So people ask me if they should just be recording stuff constantly so that they always have footage to go with those updates. And that approach will work, but recording all the time is a huge hassle. You have to make it part of your workflow and deal with the actual logistics of storing that much footage. And then searching through the footage to find the stuff you need for your video takes forever because you end up with so much of it. A much better approach is to use version control. Now, if you're working on an indie game and not already using version control, then that's a really bad sign. You should definitely be doing that. You should use version control. But on the very small chance that you're not familiar with it, it basically allows you to save snapshots of the current version of the project. And these snapshots are called commits. And you can jump between these commits very easily. So if you're committing your work frequently and leaving helpful descriptions for the work that you actually did for those commits, then it's really easy to get footage of all the stages of the project from start to finish after you've written the script. What I usually do is read back through my script, and as I'm reading it, I note down all the different footage assets I'll need for the edit. And then I go through my commit history and record everything I need from the list. The more organized you are with your version control, the easier it will be to get all the footage you need. Now, I'm pretty disorganized with my commits, and I leave myself completely useless commit messages like a bunch of stuff, or the much more helpful, oof, I did a bunch of stuff. And that makes it harder to get footage, but not totally impossible. So even if you're going to be lazy with your version control, like I am, I still think it's the best way to get the footage you need for your video. But okay, I just gave you a bunch of practical advice on how to take your ideas and turn them into a devlog. But what if you're struggling with the ideas phase? Like you have a game and you want to talk about it, but you don't know what kind of video to make. You don't know what to showcase or how to showcase it or what kind of story to tell. What you need to do is research, and you research by watching other game dev YouTubers. I mean, even this video you're watching right now could be a helpful resource for ideas on how to make your own instructional game dev video. For example, my favorite two indie dev YouTubers are Jonas Tyroller and then Jonas Tyroller again, but this time with a little hat. Okay, for real, it's Jonas Tyroller and Sebastian Log, and I watch all of their videos. And watching their videos has helped me get way better at making my own videos because I look at what they did well, and then I try to apply those lessons in my own videos. For example, I was avoiding getting too technical in my early devlogs because I thought people wouldn't really like it. I thought it would be boring. But Sebastian Log gets really technical in his devlogs. He breaks things down to like a molecular level. And I like it when he does that. It makes the video better. Watching his videos made me realize that I shouldn't be afraid to get really into the technical details. And this was a great realization to have because I like making more technical devlogs. They're easier for me to write and they perform better than my non-technical ones. And Jonas has been a huge inspiration for my channel. He helped me learn how to structure my devlogs in a way that frames the things I'm doing for my game more generally, to make it applicable to people who want updates about my game, indie devs that want educational content that helps them with their own games, and a non-developer audience that just has an interest in games in general. Without Jonas's videos, I never would have been able to write my Slopes devlog, and that's the best performing devlog I've ever made. But you don't have to limit yourself to just game dev YouTubers. The channel that's had the biggest impact on how I make my devlogs is Internet Shaquille. And that guy makes cooking videos. But his series on confusing groceries is what gave me the idea for my game dev secrets. Well, confusing groceries and my wife INSANDIO telling me to stop showing my face, and instead I should just show Isadora because she's much prettier than I am. But in general, I learned a lot about instructional content by just watching exactly what he does because he's so good at it. And that's the key. A good devlog must be, by definition, a good video. And to make a good video, you need to have an opinion on what a good video is. It's exactly the same as game design. When you're studying a game, you play it and then you analyze it. You're trying to figure out what's good about it so you can replicate those things, and figure out what's bad about it so you can avoid those things. Do that same process, but with YouTube videos. Because ultimately, your goal should just be to make a devlog that you would want to watch. To make something that you think is good, that you enjoy the process of creating. Assuming that making devlogs is actually something you want to do. Like, I have never and will never agree with people who say you can't do it or you shouldn't do it. Because if it's something that you want to do, especially a creative project like making an indie game or making a YouTube video, then it's absolutely worth doing, regardless of what your chance of success is. But I will say that you don't need to make devlogs. It's not an obligation. There are plenty of other ways to promote your game. But if you're interested in making devlogs, you should just get started and give it a try. I will, however, give you a big warning. Your first devlogs will probably not be any good. Mine weren't. I mean, mine are truly terrible. But I enjoyed making them. And by making them, I was able to practice, learn, and get better at it. And that process, regardless of how many wish lists it gets Isadora's Edge on Steam, was worth it for me. And I think that for a lot of aspiring game devs out there, it'll be worth it for them too. But that's it for this video. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe. And also, a huge thank you to all my Patreon supporters and all my YouTube channel members. I would not be able to continue working on this channel without your support, so I really appreciate it. Thank you so much, everyone. And if you're about to start making devlogs, good luck.